Um, Thank you everyone for joining us who's here today. I'm going to start off with a little bit of housekeeping information, background stuff before I introduce our guest speaker for the day. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Celia Polman. I'm a mechanical engineer with Thompson Consulting Engineers, and I work in their Virginia Beach office. Earlier this year, I started the Women in Construction group at Thompson Consulting Engineers, and with the mission to provide resources, experience, and insight for continual growth and success of the women in the construction and engineering field, both current and future. And from that group, we came up with the idea to have the speaker series. And the series is opened up beyond just Thompson Consulting Engineers, obviously, since all of you are here today. And our goal with this series is to provide a platform for successful women in the architecture, engineering, and construction industries to share their experiences, advice for those hoping to grow their careers, and also discuss the unique challenges that are faced by women in this field. We hope that all of you find value in this series, and we can provide a space for connections and some open discussions, promoting all of your careers and those of the women around you. So diving into specifics for today, we are going to start out in an interview format between myself and Chelsea. If at any point you have questions or comments that pop up as we're talking, feel free to use the chat feature or the Q&A. You can just type it in there. Megan will be moderating that for us, and she'll let us know when your questions come up. And then we'll probably finish up with about 20 minutes or so left in our event, and then we'll open it up to all of you to ask questions. You can unmute yourself, you can show your camera if you like, whatever you're comfortable with. You can also still type in the chat, and that can be sharing questions or adding your own input on any topics that we discussed today. And I will remind you all that the session is being recorded. I'm sure it told you as you logged in, and we will be sending out a copy of the video to all of you in attendance today. Once that's processed, it'll also be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so that anyone who was unable to attend today can still see the video, get the input from Chelsea, and hopefully everything else that we talked about today. So that brings me to our guest speaker, Chelsea Foley. She is with us today from HAVTECH. She grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan, and graduated from Michigan State University in 2009. She then went on to attend the University of Pittsburgh School of Law, where she received her Juris Doctorate in 2013. Chelsea worked as a criminal defense attorney in private practice and conducted consulting in law for about 2 years before she then shifted her career into sales in the mechanical industry. In that shift, Chelsea has sold mechanical services at Piedmont Services Group, building automation and controls at Chesapeake Controls, and now she sells comprehensive turnkey mechanical solutions directly to owners in her current position at HAVTECH. Chelsea now lives in Virginia Beach with her husband and their 3 young boys. Thank you so much, Chelsea. We're happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Celia. I'm really grateful that you guys invited me to be the speaker this month, and I'm excited. I'm hoping I can share some value, and hopefully you guys can relate to my story and how I ended up in this industry. So thank you, Celia and Megan and Matt.
Yeah, awesome. I think, is there anything else that you would like to add to that little introduction that maybe I missed that you want people to know?
No, I think we'll probably get where we need to go with the questions you have prepared, and hopefully some of the attendees have some questions as well. I'm looking forward to connecting with you all, hopefully after this call.
Awesome. Well, I think probably the first question on a lot of people's minds when they hear your bio is, how did you get where you are now? You started off with a with a Juris Doctorate, and now you're selling mechanical solutions. What brought you here?
So I understand that a lot of people on this call are either in the construction industry or hoping to one day become a part of this industry. I just sort of ended up here. It was never really a goal. Of course, I pursued a law career, went to law school, passed the bar exam, started working for a criminal defense firm. And along with all of my legal work that I was handling, I was in court 5 days a week, most weeks. I was also doing all of our consultations. So I was consulting with prospective clients on their charges, their situations, recommending, suggesting what I think likely outcomes would be. And then, of course, I was responsible for getting all those clients to hire our firm. So I was doing sales work inadvertently. I never thought I'd be in sales. And it ended up being a great couple of years for me. And as my life changed and my priorities changed, we started talking about having a family. I realized I might need to make a shift, and I decided it was a really difficult decision, but decided to pursue a career in sales. And honestly, I was interviewing with a few different companies trying to weigh my options. And at the time, the best fit for me was working for a mechanical company selling service. It didn't require a whole lot of travel. There's so much construction and so much happening in the Tidewater, Hampton Roads area that it seems like a good fit. And gosh, that was 8 years ago, and I haven't really looked back. So here I am, still in the industry and loving it.
Yeah, here you are now. I think we we can kind of skip around a little bit. I was thinking about talking about this later, but you kind of brought it up in your description right there. The topic of work-life balance. That came up a lot in our last session, especially with children involved and what growing a family looks like while you're also growing a career. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Like, you've got a busy, demanding job, your husband has a busy, demanding job, and you have 3 kids. Like, what
Yes.
does that balance look like for you, and how did you figure that out?
Yeah, so I have 3 little kids, and they're pretty close in age. One of them is a baby. He's 1 year old. So let's just say that my work-life balance is critical. And really, that's what motivated this whole career change, was pursuit of a better balance. I do my absolute best to protect my nights and weekends. And that can be hard. I mean, this is a pretty demanding role and expectations are high, but I do my absolute best to not work outside of working hours. Of course, I think the most important thing is setting those expectations and sometimes boundaries with, coworkers, employers early on. I find that transparency is key. You have to just be honest with the people you're working with. And, it's unfortunate. We as women have to do that. It's not always what you want to talk about on a job interview, but I find that if you want long-term success and long-term happiness at an employer, you just have to be honest with them. And I've been really fortunate to work for some great companies that have understood my situation, and it really isn't a problem too much. People know you can call me after working hours, but if I'm able to, you're likely going to hear kids in the background, and that's just how it's going to be. So people are pretty respectful of it, though.
Great. And have you seen any kind of differences in how your workplaces will treat you with your kids versus maybe your male coworkers with their kids? I know that was a topic we've talked about as well.
Yeah, so I haven't had too much of an issue with my employers. I'm in sales, so I'm, out interfacing with customers and clients. I find that it's more on that receiving end. Sometimes
Okay.
it's who I'm selling to might perceive me a little differently. Sometimes I'm selling to folks in facilities, men that have been in the industry for decades, working on the same equipment forever. And they know their stuff. I mean, they're lifelong mechanics, and sometimes you have to kind of overcome that. And that's been a little bit of a challenge here and there. But I think that most of the people I work with, it hasn't been a problem. I feel like they're just grateful to have a woman in the field and our perspective. We offer something different. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's very important to have a bunch of different perspectives in any industry.
Absolutely.
Could you go into a little bit about that, how you felt you've been perceived differently as a sales person? And especially since we are in an industry, not just that the sales industry might be highly male dominated where we are now, but also the people you're selling to are
Yes.
used to talking to other men, used to talking to that kind of situation.
Yes. So I feel like the biggest thing, being a woman in this industry, you just can't take it personally, right? I mean, people are going to have their perceptions of you. But it's, my job to prove them wrong. And when I walk into a mechanical room or a boiler room and, you're facing a boiler room Bob or a gentleman that's been in the industry forever, worked for this particular place forever and knows this equipment like the back of his hand. It's not always my job to be a technical expert. I mean, I'm in a sales role, so I'm lucky that the companies I've worked for have provided me a lot of support, a lot of technical support. And, if I feel like a particular client or prospective customer isn't well receiving of the fact that I'm a young lady, sometimes I'll bring someone else with me. So I think the moral of my story is here, just don't take it personally. Do the best you can, learn as much as you can. Again, I'm not required to be a technical expert. I know there's some engineers, including you on this call. So that might be different for you, but I do the best I can to do my job. I'm here to do a job. And if I need to bring support with me, I'll do it.
Yeah, great. And I'm sure there's some difference with the engineers on the call, the technical expertise that we're expected to have and expected to portray. But there's still, even though you don't need to have that technical expertise, you still need to understand the systems and what you're selling and be able to talk intelligently about that to the owners and your customers. How did you develop confidence in what you're talking about, what you're interfacing with, especially since your background is in law and it's not in HVAC?
Yes, I'm so glad that you asked, because if you would have asked me 10 years ago where I would be, I would never in a million years have thought I'd be in construction, mechanical at all. So when I was making this huge career shift and looking at some different companies to potentially work for, I mean, mechanical was just one of them. I was looking in healthcare, I was looking in all different aspects. And I'll say I was a little intimidated to become a part of this industry. And I had to work really hard. This whole imposter syndrome thing that you and I spoke about last week, feeling like you're not responsible for getting to where you are. I am, because I had to work really hard to learn this. I don't have a mechanical mind, I don't think about how things work. That's not naturally where my mind goes. So, I mean, I've had to ask a lot of questions. I've had to ask for a lot of extra support. Sometimes, I'll have an engineer work with me. Hey, I'm not really sure how this works. Can you take some time out of your day to work with me maybe once a month or so? And I mean, just build on those skills. And like you said, I don't have to be the expert, but I have to be able to walk the walk and talk the talk when I'm out there with people. So I've had to put a lot of time and energy into building my skills. And, every step of my career in this industry, I've kind of built on that. So sometimes I'm speaking to people and I'm, hey, I'm proud and I'm surprised how far I've come. I didn't know anything about this when I started. And now, I'm selling pretty comprehensive, complex projects and solutions. So it's just taken a lot of work. And, I've had to put in the time, but that's the whole thing. If people don't take you seriously, you've just got to prove them wrong.
Yeah. Do you have any advice on maybe like what's the one thing that you feel made the most difference for you?
Yes. Getting your eyes on the equipment. I think getting up on the roofs, getting out of your comfort zone, get into the mechanical room. So I sell HVAC solutions. So you need to see the units. You need to open them up, take a peek around, ask questions. I work with some really brilliant technicians, engineers, service managers. You just have to get out there and see it. So for me, learning firsthand and just getting out in front of people and asking the right questions just takes time.
Yeah. I'll second that from the technical perspective as well. When you come straight out of school, you don't necessarily know how these systems really work. You don't know how construction happens. So when you get out into the field and you can see it, especially during construction, you see what it takes to lift a 24-inch pipe up to the ceiling, then you realize, okay, I have to think about that when I'm making my designs. And it does make a difference.
Huge difference.
Comfort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I also think too, building a strong network of other people in your industry that might not be in mechanical, but there's, roofing folks, there's concrete folks, there's plumbing folks. I mean, there's people that I've met along the way, and you ask them, how do we work together? Like, how does this all fit in to kind of more holistically understand the construction process? I'm pretty active in some networking groups, and it's been really helpful meeting people in different facets of this industry to see how it all fits together.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's pretty exciting.
We do we are all part of a much bigger design. And so, yeah, when you can
Yeah.
understand the different components, even if you aren't directly involved in them, definitely makes you better.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just mentioned also, stepping back a little bit, the imposter syndrome that we talked about.
Yep.
Can you kind of introduce what we talked about last week to the rest of the group, and then we can dive into that a little bit as well? I think that
Yes.
ties in very much to this.
Yeah, so we talked about that last week, and it's sometimes I wonder why it's so prevalent or so common in women to feel this way, like we're not responsible for our own success, or how did I get here? It was luck. It wasn't luck, it was hard work, and it took a pretty bold decision to make a major career change, but I made it for the betterment of my family and the life that I want to live and my priorities. And so just working hard, getting here and reflecting back on all that time and, being out of my comfort zone, making a move that was scary into an industry I didn't know a whole lot about. But, it's just been it's a big learning curve, and it's taken me a lot to get here. And I just constantly remind myself of that every day. I'm in this position now. I mean, I'm so happy to work for HAVTECH in the role that I'm in now, but it took a lot of building blocks to get here. And no one was responsible for that except for myself. So just constantly have to shut out the noise and just remember that I got myself here, and I'm going to fight to stay here and to just keep growing on everything I've learned. So
Yeah, I think imposter syndrome is probably something that anyone in any industry can relate to feeling at some point in their lives, but
yeah.
it is highly prevalent amongst professional women in particular. And you and I had talked about how when applying for jobs, women will only apply for a job if they meet every single one of those requirements. Like, yes, I have that certification. Yes, I'm an expert in that skill. Whereas men will apply if it's like 60% of the qualifications that they meet.
Right.
And that can really be a self-limitation that we're imposing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're right, like you're the one who made that decision to change your career, to make that leap. And if you had looked at the requirements for the job and had to meet all of those, had those sales experience in mechanical sales, you wouldn't have met that, right? So you wouldn't have made that change. Yeah, we can't only focus on meeting every expectation, because moving forward, you just have to have that confidence in yourself and knowing that even if you don't meet that right now, you will.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Let me see. I mean, yeah, confidence has been a huge, huge topic that we've talked about here. And I think that can go into just portraying yourself as well with other people when you're presenting, or in your case, selling things. Do you do anything to kind of prepare yourself for that so that you know that you're going to seem confident when you're talking to people?
Absolutely. So I try and do an internal meeting before any time interfacing with the customer, familiarize myself with their system, figure out how long that particular individual has been with the company, how much they know. You got to know who in that industry or who in that organization you're talking to. I mean, because their expertise might be different depending on what level they're in. So just doing my best to prepare, both technically and otherwise, just making sure I know exactly what I want to focus on, writing down the questions I want to answer. I have these questions I have to get answered before I leave this meeting. So just doing my best to be prepared and again, just be confident. I mean, maybe someone's been in this industry longer than I have, but I've been selling in different capacities for a long time. So I just need to focus on my strengths and again, be honest. If I don't know the answer to your question, I can get you the answer to your question. So just relying on people I work with and my support system. So
yeah, and kind of tying off of that, I'd like to hear a bit about just generally in your career, who has been your biggest support system?
Yeah, so I just have to say my family, my husband, having little kids and pursuing a career like this isn't always easy. And his job is also very demanding, requires a ton of travel. And I wouldn't be able to do it without his support. I mean, he's been pushing me all along to fight for these roles and to fight for my place in this industry. And he believed me. He believed my vision years ago when I decided to leave the career path I was on and start a new one. And yeah, and he's been encouraging. So I feel like that's huge. I wouldn't be able to do it without him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And kind of opposite of that, what has been your greatest challenge in your career, and what have you done to overcome it?
I would say the biggest challenge was making that move, right? Going from, I spent all this time in school, in college, in law school, studying for the bar exam, worked really hard to get this career and to get this job. And, I was scared I was making a mistake. So I would say, looking back, I'm so happy I made that decision, but it was really difficult. I constantly second guessed myself in the beginning. So again, 8 years ago, I decided to pretty much leave law practice and trailblaze and just venture out into this new industry. And I knew one day I would end up where I am now, or I felt confident that I would, but it was a big risk and it was really scary. And I'm ashamed to admit I was a little worried what people would think. What is she doing? She's an attorney. Why is she making this move? But you know what? Again, it's like shut out the noise, focus on where I want my life to go, focus on pursuing a career where I know I'd have more autonomy, more control over my schedule. And, I knew it could be pretty lucrative for me. So I just kind of had to follow that dream. And yeah, looking back, that was by far the most challenging part of this. But now, ever since then, it's really been adjusting, learning, adapting, growing technically, growing my technical knowledge. And, again, I just have a lot of support. I've been really fortunate to work for some great companies that have given me resources, training, tools that I needed to keep building on my knowledge base. So
Yeah. Do you have any recommendations for that knowledge base growth? Like, I know obviously you're people you work with, but also beyond that.
Yeah. So to anyone on this call, women, young or old, if you think that you want to pursue a career here, do it. Just get started. Learn. You'll learn as you go. Like Celia and I just said, you'll learn in the field. It just takes time. I mean, you're not going to have it all figured out in the beginning. No one expects you to. But again, sometimes men don't have a problem with that. We as women need to be bold and be brave and just begin. Have confidence in yourself. You can do it and you can learn. And I think also too, just following your strengths, right? I mean, years and years ago when I was an attorney in court and also doing these consultations, I realized that, sales kind of came a little bit naturally to me and it was fun. And I sort of gave me energy to do. And so I realized, this is something I could really make a career out of and the rest will follow. You just have to learn, you have to work make sure you find a great company that supports you and just get out there and do it. Don't think so hard. Just get out there and do it.
Yeah, I think that's huge what you said. Nobody expects you to know everything. It's true. It's true. And we do have people around us who will have the strengths where we have our weaknesses, and using that as well to help you is huge.
Absolutely.
Let me see. I had a question pop up that I just forgot. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay. So what has been some of the most fascinating parts of what you've learned in changing your career? I would just kind of like to go into your interests in that. Obviously, your interests didn't start out, like we've said, in mechanical and HVAC at all. Have you grown to become more interested in that? And if so, kind of what areas do you really enjoy?
Absolutely. So when I started in mechanical, I was selling mechanical service, preventative maintenance, service contracts, quickly realized people are spending millions or more on this equipment. I mean, you really have to take care of it to increase the longevity of this equipment. And so through that, realizing, wow, there's a lot of construction, a lot of this process is tied up in the mechanical. I mean, this is one of the more expensive realms of construction, and you need to take care of your investment. So just kind of learning financially how that makes sense. And it can be pretty easy to sell if you can understand those tools and the process. And then after that, I started selling controls. So, and that was way more technical than I ever imagined. So I learned a ton. I sold controls for 4 years, and now selling comprehensive projects. It's amazing how much mechanical can translate into energy savings and can really, I mean, I like more of a financial sell, selling the bottom line. And what better way to do that than selling in the mechanical world? So it's I'm pleasantly surprised that it's been really fun and exciting. And again, I can't believe I've been doing this for as long as I have, but
Yeah.
I think I have no intention of changing at this point. I'm going to stay in this industry for hopefully forever.
Awesome. Yeah. I I think that's great that you've developed the interest and developed all of the knowledge base. And I'm sure it hasn't always been easy interacting with
Mm-hmm.
people who are so focused on the technical stuff and maybe don't want to hear about the bells and whistles. Um, what kind of, I guess, strategies do you have when communicating with people who are coming from a different perspective?
So I think the biggest thing is asking the right questions. You need to figure out what someone's focus in, their industry drivers, what are their biggest challenges. I mean, ultimately, as salespeople, we're trying to solve someone's problem. So you got to focus on, what's been going on in your industry, asking the right questions. So really just shifting focus from, what am I selling? What makes it amazing? What makes us different, stand out among our competitors versus focusing on the customer and their specific needs and tailoring the solution to what they need and solving their problem. So I think that's a huge strategy overall in sales. Just really, don't talk so much. Ask questions. Make sure you know who you're selling to and what they need.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of extra spending that doesn't need to happen is because of miscommunication.
Absolutely.
100%.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Or yeah, sometimes people know what they want. Sometimes you just need to give them what they want.
Yep.
Other times they don't, and you need to consult a little bit and educate and maybe open their mind to some different possibilities or some better solutions that might not be as costly. So I think just understanding your customer is
Mhm.
huge.
Mhm. Um, let's see. I would like to hear from you some advice that you would have for the younger ladies on the call trying to grow their careers, whether it's in engineering or in sales, or I know we have a lot of architects on the call right now as well. So just all in this highly male-dominated field. What are your maybe top two or three pieces of advice?
Gosh, kind of circle back to what we were already saying. I think just be confident in yourself. You know what you know what you're talking about. You were hired for a reason, and we as women in this industry, there's not only room for us here, there's a need for us here, and we offer different perspectives. We have a different skill set, and that's why we're here. We've got a seat at the table now, so just use it. Be confident, be brave, be bold. I would say to any other younger women on the call, perhaps think about what you want your life to look like in 5 years, 10 years. I mean, my life dramatically changed. When I went to law school, I wasn't really focused on where I was going to be in the future. I was kind of just thinking about right now. So maybe picture your life down the road. What do you want your life to look like? Maybe find a career in construction that's a little more conducive to the lifestyle that you want. I've been able to do that, and I'm so fortunate I made that move years ago. But I think you really need to just protect the life that you want and make sure that you're making decisions to get yourself there. Follow your strengths, don't focus on your weaknesses, improve where you can. But I think if you follow your strengths, build your network, just remember reputation is everything, opportunities will follow.
Yeah, and I think we're hoping to start building a network a little bit here with this series. I know I felt that the support network for women in our construction industry in this area was not really there right now. So we're hoping to start building that, and hopefully people can start making those connections. But I also wanted to bounce off your mention of the need for women in this industry. And I know we talked previously about how you've seen that directly from people that you work with and people who are employing people. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I just think that we offer a different perspective. You know, we have a different skill set, maybe softer selling skills. Maybe sometimes that's better. I mean, I think traditionally in this industry, it's been sort of men just charging ahead. And I think that sometimes we can be a little bit more analytical, a little bit more methodical. And yeah, I think that like you said in the beginning, diversity is important. I mean, we need different viewpoints, different perspectives. And I think, again, I've been really lucky to work for some great companies, but I think what I bring to the table has been pretty well received. And I think people can identify that, you know, I might not be a traditional salesperson in this industry, but yeah, I think it's been pretty well received overall.
Yeah, and are you seeing a trend of more women becoming salespeople in the industry
I am.
and being
So
successful, right?
yeah, so years ago when I took that step back and had to really think about my life and what I wanted out of this and moved away from my law career and pursued sales. I was interviewing with all different kinds of companies, medical device companies, pharmaceutical companies, and this mechanical company. I mean, I remember thinking, what do they want with me? I don't know. I don't know what HVAC stands for. Back then, I didn't know anything. But you know, again, I focused on my work-life balance, what I wanted my life to look like. And I'm so lucky that I landed in this industry. And over time, I've found that women, some of my friends and, you know, other friends in other industries, medical, you know, the ones I mentioned, are slowly starting to see that there's so much potential here and there's room here. And I've recently had a friend move over from what she was doing before in tech, and she's now in construction sales. So I think that we as young women or young or old are sort of trailblazing and making other women realize there's so much potential here, especially in our area. I mean, there's construction happening everywhere. It's nonstop. So I think I think this is a great spot to be, and I'm just happy I'm happy I landed here because it wasn't on purpose. But now looking back, I'm so glad it happened the way that it did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on our last call, we had a lot of discussion about how the industry's changed over the past, I don't know, so many years. We had some women on the call who were nearing the end of their careers rather than just beginning it. And speaking of how impactful the change has been just over the
Yes.
course of their career, how difficult it was at the beginning to be taken seriously as a woman in a
Yeah.
technical field, and how much better it is now, but we still face those burdens, those challenges,
Mhm.
and there's still some, areas where you'll be received differently because you're a
Yeah.
woman and maybe not taken seriously in the same way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we just got to keep pushing forward and getting more female perspectives, voices at the table, and hopefully that can continue to improve. And hopefully we're all
Absolutely.
doing that here today as well.
Absolutely. Well, Celia, that's why I'm so glad that you're doing this because I'm going to tune in every month. I can't wait to see the next speaker, but I'd love to hear from someone with more experience in the industry because I'd love to know what it was like before. I like to think it's changing. I've seen it firsthand. People are starting to consider careers in this role in this industry, and that maybe wouldn't have thought so before. So I'd love to
Yeah.
have their perspective. So I think it's really cool what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that we've seen in this industry, not that I've done the research myself, but um, SWE, the Society of Women Engineers, has done research into keeping women in engineering fields. And it's been noted that after you hit about 5 or 7 year mark in your career, there's a huge drop off of women who are leaving the field,
Yeah.
going into other industries. And the biggest thing that keeps the women in the field is support networks.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely part of what we're hoping to start developing a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
Because it is, you're right, it's important to have the different voices at the table
Hmm.
and female voices in leadership as well. And
Absolutely.
if everyone's leaving after 5 years, you're not going to get to that point, right?
Right.
Um, And I think that goes back to your comment as well about looking at your future
Mhm.
and where do you want to see yourself in 5, 10 years? And
Right.
hopefully we can overcome some of that imposter syndrome and we see ourselves successful and
Yeah.
in leadership and building ourselves and
Right.
building the career still in the industry as well.
Absolutely.
Well, we're actually, wow, our timing was like perfect because we've hit 12:40, which was about when I was going to open the floor up to our audience. Um, we'd like this last bit to be pretty interactive, not just me and Chelsea talking at each other again. So if there's any additional questions that people have, um, insight that you'd like to provide, like I had said in the beginning, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and talk or open up your camera if you're comfortable with that. Otherwise, you can continue to just type in the chat or in the Q&A portion. We'd love to hear any more questions. I know we've talked about a lot of things. But yeah, let's see if anyone's got anything to say. I know it's scary to be the first person to ask, but don't be afraid to jump on.
I can fill some of the silence if we're waiting for some questions.
Sure.
When you asked about the work-life balance thing, and I'm thinking about this, what do I do to protect my personal life, my time with my kids? I mean, having 3 young kids, they're all obviously in full-time daycare. I work full-time,
Yeah.
but doing what I can to protect my evenings and weekends. In a sales role, it's an important part of my job to be active in networking groups. And those events are sometimes nights, sometimes weekends. So I feel like being really selective of the events that I go to. You don't have to go to it all. I mean, you can join, you can do the luncheons. It's a huge ask to ask a working mother to come out for some dinner event or some cocktail hour or something. So
Yeah.
I feel like I try and look ahead at the calendar, figure out which ones I want to hit, which ones I can make, and which ones I can't. So I feel like it's really important to protect your time and your private life and your family life, because ultimately that's my first priority. It's always going to be.
Yeah. And how do you kind of sort through that? Like which events are important enough to maybe
Yeah.
consider, all right, do we call a babysitter? Do I ask my husband to watch the 1-year-old for the night? Like how do you
Yeah.
kind of parse through that?
So I'm in a lot of different groups. So I try and diversify. I want to be as present as I can amongst the ones I deem are important. So, and then of course, I travel for work commitments for my own job as well, for my own company. So, really just it also has to do when he's gone too. I mean, he travels a lot as well. So sometimes I couldn't find a babysitter but I just do my very best to prioritize the really important ones. I love the golf tournaments. They're during the workday. Those are great. The luncheons are great. I mean, this is wonderful. This is virtual. I still have plenty of meetings later on this afternoon. So I just do my best to make sure I'm kind of hitting those major groups and getting out there with a targeted list of who I want to meet, who I want to see, who I want to get in front of. So just kind of maximizing my time.
Yeah. We have a comment from Sydney. She said, this conversation truly resonated with me and was very relatable. I'm happy to see this forum taking shape as it seems to be. Great job. Thank you, Sydney. We appreciate your attendance and hopefully you can keep coming every month and keep learning more. We've also got a question from Stephanie. She says, do you get nervous? Because you seem very confident.
Oh yeah, I get nervous for sure. Again, that technical expertise, which some of my customers or clients in the business are like, you've come such a long way in the years I've known you. I mean, I can almost fool people. I say I know enough to be dangerous to get out there, but yes, I definitely get nervous. But again, I just have to make sure I'm as prepared as possible. There's oftentimes questions that I don't anticipate, or if I'm doing a speaking engagement, I want to make sure I have someone there to assist me technically. And again, just you have to be able to admit when you don't have the answer, but you can always get it. So yeah, I do get nervous, but just try and pump yourself up and charge through it.
Yeah, fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah. Guys do it all the time. We can do it too.
Um, Actually, Stephanie's got another question. She's popping up with good
Yeah.
ones. How do you hold yourself accountable in what you're doing? I'm assuming in like learning these new things and talking to different people and making sure you do what you say you're going to do, situations like that.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy to do that in my role because again, I'm driven by the bottom line. I'm in a sales position, expectations are high. You know, working from home, you have to be very self-disciplined with your time. And again, being a mom to three young boys, kids get sick. I have to do daycare pickup early sometimes, fevers happen. I have to do the absolute best I can to maximize the time I have. So I've learned to become pretty efficient with my time, getting my administrative stuff done or my paperwork done in my own time and, just trying to be as intentional with my time as possible. I mean, those work hours, those parameters, I mean, those are strict for me. I can't work in the evenings most nights. My kids, they're young, they need my attention. So just being
Yeah.
really intentional and very self-disciplined during the day to get everything done. And then as far as, follow up with customers, communication is everything, right? I mean, you need to over communicate with someone. If you say you're going to get something back to them, don't ever over promise. You don't want to under deliver. You want to be
Yeah.
as available and communicative as possible with customers. So just making sure that you're always communicating and being honest about timelines and things like that.
Kind of tying into that, Karen asked if you use a CRM software to manage your clients, and if so, which one? She's in lighting, sales, and design and would like some help keeping up with clients.
Yeah, so I've used several different ones in my day. I've used Salesforce. I love Salesforce. I've used Cassential for a bit. I've used Bid Tracer. They're all great. I think no matter which one you're using, if they have a crash course or any kind of tutorials or something, take those because I mean they have some really useful tools and they can integrate with your iPhone or whatever kind of phone you use. I mean, I'm on the go all the time. I'm pretty much working out of my car half the day because I'm
Yeah.
driving around seeing customers. So I feel like whatever CRM you're using, just make sure you familiarize yourself with it and take advantage of the tools that they have because usually it's pretty intuitive and they have some pretty useful tools to make staying effective and following up. I mean, it makes it a lot easier if you use the tools that they have.
Yeah.
So
Is there one of those that was your favorite or you felt like was easiest to work with?
Bid Tracer is pretty cool for construction in particular because you can follow up with your customers or let's say that you're bidding to a certain number of mechanical contractors or general contractors. You can send out documents that way. So it makes, uploading plans and specs, sharing certain documents with certain people. It makes it pretty easy. So I thought Bid Tracer was a really good one.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah.
We have another question from Jody. Um, they're curious if you have any female mentors within your company.
So, not really well, at my new company, there's a ton of amazing women. I think some of them are on this call. I've been with HAVTECH for only about 2 months now, so I'm still getting to know everyone. And I think I'm gonna to create some really lasting friendships here, and I'm gonna have some mentors here at the company. But prior to that, I remember just some of the women that I was working with. So when I was selling controls, I was sometimes bidding to, an ESCO or a company like I work for now, where controls is just one small piece of very technical mechanical puzzle. So, I'm working with engineers, I'm working with, mechanical contractors or, people supplying parts, equipment suppliers. I always remember looking up to the women that were selling those comprehensive projects because I thought, wow, like, how did you get to where you are? You've had to have mastered all of that material, like to get to sell these big projects. So I remember just kind of looking up to women, doing what I'm doing now. So I just remember thinking, wow, if they can do it, like I feel like maybe I can get there someday. So it's kind of more, maybe they didn't realize they were mentoring me at the time, but I've definitely had some women in the industry I've looked up to. And then also just female engineers like you, Celia. I was fortunate enough to work with you on some projects, and I'm really hoping we can work together in the future. So just kind of looking around me and seeing the women that are doing amazing things every day, and just knowing that, wow, I've earned a place here, and I want to stay. This is where I can see my career forever. So
Yeah, I think that's often something that's not very, structured
Mhm.
within a company, even just general mentoring, not necessarily specifically women to women mentoring, but
Mhm.
overall in your company. But I think it's very, very beneficial for sure. And
Absolutely.
hopefully we can kind of do that part a little bit if there's women on the call who don't have any female
Yeah.
mentors to look up to in their company. All of the guest speakers can kind of play that part somewhat, and then potentially create some connections for that mentorship to be developed.
Yeah, I think it's so cool what you're doing, Celia. And I really hope that I can connect with everyone that's on this call. If you found this useful, maybe you didn't, but if you did, get my email, reach out. If you're considering maybe a career in sales or anything else, if I can be of any help
Yeah.
or provide any confidence building tips or anything, just reach out to me, friend me on LinkedIn, get my email. I'd love to connect.
Absolutely. And same goes for me. If you all scroll up in the chat, you'll see my email is in there. You can reach out to me for information on the series. If you want to be a speaker, if you're interested in getting connected with our past speakers, anything like that. I'm also on LinkedIn. And yes, so Dan was asking if this session will be available, if it'll be recorded. Yes, it is going to be recorded. And once it's done processing, it'll send out to everybody who attended automatically. But we will also upload it on our YouTube channel. It's Thompson Consulting Engineers. I believe Megan shared a link in the chat, and our past session is up there, and this one will be up there too shortly. Not immediately, but once we've done some editing and everything. And then all of the sessions will be uploaded there. Our goal is to be able to share that with everybody who wasn't able to make it today. And again, if you can't make future events, then you can look for our YouTube channel. Our aim is to have the speaker events on the third Wednesday moving forward of every month. And yeah, we'll always share information about that. All participants today will be included for future sessions. If you said, yes, you want to be informed, then you're on our email list and you'll get the flyer for the next one. Megan also did share Chelsea's contact info in the chat there as well, so you can definitely reach out to her. Are there any more questions? I know I just blurted a bunch trying to answer the technical questions there. Think. Let's see, Chelsea. You did mention that you do a lot of networking events.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you can talk about some of those groups that you're part of.
Sure. So when I was selling service, it was really important to get out in front of commercial real estate owners, property managers. So I used to be really active in IREM, the Institute of Real Estate Management. IFMA is another one, that's Facility Managers Association. When I was selling controls, it was really important to get out in front of mechanical contractors, GCs, and then just other folks in the trades as well. So I was really active in the AGC, Association of General Contractors, and I was on the membership committee. So that was a great way. If you're looking to get involved with any networking group, I highly recommend joining one of the committees, because you'll quickly get to know everyone on a much deeper level, and then you'll be comfortable asking for referrals, recommendations, or introductions to anyone else in the group. ABC, the Association of Builders and Contractors, is also a wonderful one. They have some great events. Let's see, Vichy, the Virginia Society of Healthcare Engineers. I'm contemplating joining that group. HR Acre is a wonderful group. That's the Hampton Roads Association of Commercial Real Estate. I just rejoined that group after a few years off. Again, before, when I was bidding jobs or working with contractors, I wasn't really calling on owners directly, but now in this role, I'm doing a lot of owner direct. So, it's important to get in front of a different client base. So I've kind of shifted my focus back. So yeah, HR Acre. And then Crew is also women in commercial real estate. Mm-hmm. I went to a luncheon last week, and that's a great event too. So I think what you're doing, Celia, here is so important, because I don't really feel like there is a group currently for women in engineering or women in construction. So commercial real estate, they've already got their thing. So yeah, I'm grateful to be a part of this one now. So hopefully we can join, create a good network and bond and help each other and, answer questions. So
awesome. Yeah, I know our last speaker, Laura, was also part of crew, and it sounds like it's a great support network and really provides a lot of beneficial resources. So hopefully we can develop into something like that for construction.
That'd be great.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I might give a brief blurb about future sessions planning, and then we're probably done for the day, unless Chelsea, if you have any last words to say, words of wisdom, anything at all.
No, I think we pretty much covered it. I think, you need to be confident. You need to be bold. Don't be afraid to ask for help, ask questions. And then ultimately, if you're balancing a family life, just make sure you keep your priorities straight. And there are plenty of employers out there that are going to help you and make sure that they get you what you need. So I feel like finding the right company to work for is really important. And I've been really lucky to work for some great companies that have been really supportive.
Yes.
So.
Same. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for your time today. We really enjoyed our talk, and I think you provided a lot of awesome insight to everybody. We look forward to having you join us in the audience in future ones and maybe other events if we put them on. That would be awesome. For everyone who's on the call right now, our next session will be March 20th, and that's with Dana Fox with Richmond Schools. And we also have in April, I believe it's the 17th, will be the session after that. And we'll keep sending out flyer invites. Like we said, anyone who's been on this call, if you said you wanted to be informed for future events, you're already on the list. If you said no, but you still want to, feel free to reach out to me directly in my email. Megan just posted the link to our registration for March event in the chat. So we hope to see everybody there, and thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Chelsea. This was a great time.
Thank you, Celia, and thank you for everyone that attended.
All right, everyone, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.